Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff with the Cyber Pro podcast. Today, podcast? Did I just say broadcast? I meant podcast. Today, my guest is Adrian Sanabria, and we're going to talk about a number of fascinating things, but specifically, and I probably should have had more coffee this morning, why the security industry needs more mythbusters and feedback loops to keep us all honest. The last four words were my own. So with that, Adrian, how are you? Please tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, I think podcast works. It's not a devcast, right? It's a podcast. We're doing this live.
If you really wanted to get broadcasted, I'm happy to help you with that.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So, yeah, I'm one of those folks that was just kind of naturally drawn to this field because everything's new, everything's changing. I'm curious about everything. I want to test everything out, play with everything. I'm just always delighted to try out the newest, latest thing. Whether it's like I'm reading some history books right now. And I'm constantly amazed at how many new things come out about old things that happened in the past. So there's some really interesting new history books. That come out on a regular basis. And in this field, everything's new. So it's it was a no brainer. It was seemed like magic to me. Like same thing, same reason I learned to drive stick shift. You know, it's just like I want to know how that works. Like that looks really cool. I like the idea of having more control over when the car is shifting and stuff like that. So I had to learn it, and I did.
That's an interesting comment, wanting to be in more control as technologically wise with AI, robotics,
Yeah,
fill in the blank. We are moving toward a society that is less in control of daily matters as well as some might argue our destiny,
yeah.
and specifically around what we do here around cybersecurity and the necessity of busting myths because everything is so new. So, can you share with us kind of how you arrived at that? Like what was it that drove you toward wanting to uncover the untruths, whether was premeditated or not?
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting pointing out control because that was not the driver. That was the initial driver is just the need to understand how things work. To see how something works and just to want to understand like food supply chain. Like I can read about that all day. Like I find it fascinating how the world feeds itself. And how different different events can impact that. Like the banana is what we call a banana is a Cavendish banana, and that's not what our grandparents ate. Our grandparents ate a different kind of banana, the varietal of which I can't remember the name of, because we switched to Cavendish long before I was born. And you'll hear people say, bananas used to taste sweeter. Absolutely, they did because it was a completely different kind of banana. But sometimes these crops, that we use to feed the world, get hit by blights, and we have to move to a different kind. And I think that's what happened in this case. Is the supply couldn't keep up. Bananas are the number one thing that Walmart sells, and like that is the most common product they sell. I think they sell one every like 20 seconds or 30 seconds or something like that. And it's to keep the supply chain going, they had to switch to a different kind of banana that wasn't impacted by that blight that took out all these banana farms. So it's yeah, what brings me to it is needing to know how things work and understand how things work. And we're so dependent on technology at this point. It wasn't nearly as essential for people to understand this stuff back when I started. But yeah, after learning how things work, then you understand like what you want to have control over and what you'd rather let somebody else do. Like, do I want to run my own email server? I could, and
Uh,
I'd have a lot of control over it. I wouldn't have to worry about a lot of things that I worry about, letting somebody else do it. But yeah, I mean, at this stage in my life, I've got so much stuff going on. I'm not going to run my own email server. Like I'll pay somebody else to do that. And now there's more options than just Yahoo and Gmail, right? So
Well,
now
they're
we can.
listening to us, so we should be nice to them. So let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit more, right? Like
Yeah,
I love the analogy of the banana, right? Just because it's something that is on a growth curve going up, and
you don't
also
think about it.
because, right, these companies all need to have a product that's going to make it from field to store to table and not look bad and or taste bad, right? So it's an economics thing as well. It's a reality thing. So when we talk about porting that over to cybersecurity and the industry need for busters to keep us honest and more feedback loops, so we know we don't go too far off
Mhm.
the reservation. Like what do we have to do to accomplish both of those things? How do we start?
Yeah, so there's this really popular YouTuber. I want to say his channel name is Veracitium. You know what I'm talking about? Is that the correct name? It's
Heard, don't
one of
know.
the like top 10 YouTube channels out there. And he's very sciencey, very geeky. You know, dives into some interesting stuff. And one of the things that he dove into was the concept of an expert. You know, what makes an expert? And you know, if you've ever read any of Malcolm Gladwell's stuff, this is he wrote a book, and I'm blanking on the name of the book right now. You know, but he kind of popularized the 10,000 hour, you know, theory. The idea that, you know, once you've spent enough time on something, you know, you become an expert on it just from experience, from exposure to it. But he actually identifies in this video that there are a couple other things that are missing there. And one of them is feedback loops. Like if you do something for 10,000 hours, but you never see the result of what you do, you know, how do you improve? You know, if you don't know when failure occurs versus success. And in security, that's often the case. Like when we get breached, is that because of something I did wrong? You know, like it's such a nuanced thing, and there's so many steps that happen when an attack occurs. You know, it can be very difficult to really nail that down to okay, step by step. And you absolutely can do it. And the companies who get attacked, you know, the incident report will often give you some of those details, but the general public often don't get those details. The vendors who make the security products don't get those details. So big chunks of this feedback loop, you know, that should be rising all the ships and making the whole industry better, don't exist because unlike aviation, maritime, you know, anywhere where safety uh, is a concern, you know, usually around human life, and we want to make improvements, you know, to make safety better. Incident reports are public. This doesn't happen in security, I think, largely because human lives aren't at risk, so it's a lower priority. It's mostly, you know, the biggest outcomes that are feared are mostly financial, and you know, not nearly as cut and dry as a plane crashing or something like that. But you know, but we're feeling the downside of that. You know, we don't close those feedback loops. We don't improve. We don't get better. You know, so there's a lot of myths in how we run security programs. You know, what products help versus don't help, and how much they help. You know, actually quantifying the value of things in security is very hard to do if we can't close those feedback loops.
Hmm. Quantifying the
Value,
feedback.
yeah.
Right. I mean, you just took off in a direction where I'm going to do my last question, right? Where you said in other spaces, these reports are public because in many cases they involve human lives. And then a comment was said that what we do does not involve human lives. And I would actually beg to differ on that stance. It is not as
Hasn't traditionally,
yeah,
right? Like we're getting there. We're putting computers in places we maybe shouldn't be putting them, so we're getting there.
you took the words right out of my mouth, right? It is not a plane crash that results in the instantaneous. Wow, I'm good today. instantaneous death of human lives, but the direction that we're going, and we talked about AI and robotics, we may soon arrive at a time and a place when human lives are directly and irrevocably affected by what those things do. And then, if not already, Skynet becomes real.
Yeah.
So, how do we delay or better ensure that when we reach that time and location, that it does not become as tragic and instantaneous as a plane crash? What do we do?
And it's one of those things that can, you know, I mean, individually, it's not going to sneak up on us. We're talking about it right now that it's potentially inevitable, but as an industry, it's absolutely something that could just step up and sneak up on us. And we're in danger of being reactive instead of proactive when we do get to that point. But absolutely, yeah, we're making baby steps. Like the regulation that we see. The SEC requiring public companies to, to let their investors, to let the public know when they've had an incident within a certain time frame. Within 4 days is a step. But we really do need those details. The details that engineers and defenders can dig into. To understand how they can avoid the same fate. Right. So it's yeah, I mean, and that's all we can do right now is we can argue for it, and we can make everybody aware of it. But yeah, and it's going to come down to regulation. Like it's got to be. The capitalist approach is not gonna is not gonna solve this because it's if anything, like look at the Twitter case. With I don't know if you saw Mudge and his blew the whistle on Twitter, basically saying that they said incentives were in place to better protect users and to cut down on bots and spam accounts. And yeah, he's saying they're absolutely not incentivized on that. That like just the fact that they say they shut down 1 million spam accounts a day suggests that they're allowing 1 million spam accounts, like for that to maintain, indefinitely. They're saying 300 million a year. They're allowing way too many to be opened in the first place. Because they're incentivized on just user growth, on just raw user growth, regardless of whether they're real users or bot accounts. So putting the right incentives in place is a big one, and there aren't any natural capitalistic incentives here, or too few to make a difference.
Incentives to do good. That could be a whole other podcast or podcast.
In fact, perverse incentives was one of the main topics when the Loft hacking group testified before the Senate in 1998.
I'm going to save that one for a bonus question. But for the main podcast, I wanted to say thank you, Adrian. We are unfortunately out of time because that's what happens when you talk about interesting topics with awesome people. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You made it to the end. Thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast today. You can find more content here and there.